The April 15th episode of Beyond the Gates promises to take viewers through a full spectrum of emotions, from hope and suspense to anxiety and unease. As Kat steps into her birthday with anticipation for a special surprise from Tomas, no one can be certain whether that gift will open the door to a sweet moment of happiness or ignite an unforgettable disaster. In another development, the entire family is holding its breath over Anita's condition. Is she truly beginning to win her battle against cancer? Or is she only clinging to the last fragile thread of hope? And while everything feels this delicate, Leslie continues moving closer to Haley, leaving everyone to wonder whether this time she will succeed in pulling Haley to her side and creating a dangerously powerful alliance. At Fairmont Crest, the days that should be the gentlest are often the easiest to shatter, because in this place, happiness has never been allowed to exist without a price. A birthday party may begin with flowers, candles, and warm wishes, but the moment an old secret stirs, it can instantly become a stage for suspicion, heartbreak, and confrontations no one is truly prepared to enter. That is why Kat's birthday this year is not simply a private occasion for her to celebrate a new age with her family and the men she loves. It feels more like a test of whether a young woman who has already endured too many cracks in her family can still find the strength to believe in joy. A test of whether Tomas is truly the peaceful harbor Kat hopes he is, and a test of whether a family already straining under illness, betrayal, and unresolved bitterness can gather under one roof without letting the past destroy the present. Birthdays have always carried a special meaning for Kat, not only because it is the day she is loved a little more than usual, but because it is tied to the feeling that her family is still intact, at least on the surface. Last year, her birthday party stood as a beautiful symbol of that sense of wholeness, even though the cracks had already begun to appear quietly beneath it. Before Leslie officially shattered the world of Kat's family, Kat had already sensed that something was wrong through Eva's presence. Her suspicion back then was not simply jealousy or a moment of irritation. It was the instinctive self-protection of a young woman highly sensitive to shifts in the atmosphere of her family. Someone who understood that there are people who enter another person's home not to work, but to wait for the perfect moment to change the fate of an entire household. That is why, looking back now, it becomes clear that Kat was not wrong to feel uneasy. She was simply the one who sensed the storm before anyone else did. This year, the situation is far heavier. The relationship between Kat and Eva has not healed. On the contrary, it has rotted more deeply after everything this family has been forced to endure. What matters even more is that their conflict is no longer just a personal clash. It has become a symbol of the war between trust and betrayal, between those who belong inside the home and those who step in from outside only to overturn the entire order of things. Kat has every reason not to open her heart to Eva, because there are wounds that cannot be healed by a few explanations delivered too late. Once trust has been torn apart, the person who was hurt no longer sees the other as an ordinary human being, but as a living reminder of the day everything began to fall apart. And because of that, even though a birthday should be the kind of occasion when conflict is set aside, Eva's mere presence is enough to distort any chance of peace. Amid all that chaos, Tomas entered Kat's life like a promise of something different. He gives her the feeling of being chosen, cherished, and seen as a woman rather than simply the daughter trying to hold herself together in the emotional wreckage of her family. For someone like Kat, the most precious gift is not something expensive, but the sense that someone is standing beside her when the world around her has become impossible to trust. That is why the surprise Tomas has prepared for her is not simply a romantic gesture. Emotionally, it is a declaration that in the middle of such a turbulent year, Kat still deserves a moment that belongs only to her, a moment that Leslie, Eva, and the turmoil of her family cannot steal away. But at Fairmont Crest, the most beautiful things are often the easiest to destroy. A romantic proposal, if that is truly what happens, would be the height of joy, but also the perfect moment for tragedy to force its way in. That is why the possibility of a woman suddenly appearing and claiming to be Tomas's wife would not be only a dramatic shock. It would be a direct blow to Kat's deepest fear, that once again, at the very moment she believes she can trust, the truth will emerge in the cruelest way possible. What makes it even more terrifying is that Tomas himself may not even know who that woman is. If that happens, the issue would no longer be about his romantic past. It would become a deliberate scheme, a performance designed to smear Tomas and destroy Kat's birthday. And when one looks at the current landscape, that theory feels entirely believable. Fairmont Crest is filled with too many people who live by manipulation, too many who understand that if you want to destroy a family, you do not have to attack them head-on. You only need to choose the happiest day of their lives, the moment they are most unguarded, and place an emotional bomb in the center of the table. If a strange woman truly appears, the most painful thing for Kat will not only be humiliation. The deeper pain will come from being forced to doubt her own choice in front of her parents, her family, and everyone watching to see whether she is wise enough not to repeat the mistakes of the women who came before her. The stronger and prouder a young woman is, the harder it is for her to endure public humiliation on the very day she hoped would be the most tender. Yet that birthday party is not only about Kat and Tomas. It is also overshadowed by Ted and Nicole, two people who have traveled far enough together to know each other deeply, yet have wounded each other too profoundly to return to what they once were. Ted's decision to keep the tradition with Nicole on their daughter's birthday may seem, on the surface, like a beautiful, mature, and respectful gesture. But in families that have already fractured, no gesture is ever completely simple. A tradition may be preserved for the sake of a child, but it can also be a way of clinging to a time that has already been lost. Kat is their miracle child, the real bond between them, and also the most vivid living memory of the time when Ted and Nicole had not yet become two people standing at opposite ends of pain. So when Ted appears in the role of a responsible father, the larger question lies in the man within him. Is he doing this for Kat? Or because he still cannot accept that some things in his life have truly slipped out of his hands? Nicole is no less torn. As a mother, she undoubtedly wants her daughter's birthday to feel whole and beautiful. But as a woman who has lived through too many shocks, she cannot entirely separate her heart from the memories Ted brings back every time he behaves like the man of the family he once was. That is exactly why this party feels so fragile. Ted and Nicole may both walk into it with good intentions, but emotions that have never been fully resolved always find a way to enter the softest moments. A glance held too long, a silence that lingers at the wrong time, an unconscious gesture carrying the warmth of old familiarity. Any of it could be enough to awaken the past. And when the past has not truly gone to sleep, no family celebration can ever be completely peaceful. If Kat's storyline is rooted in fear over love and trust, then Anita's storyline is the most painful thread of the week, because it touches the deepest fear of any large family. The fear of losing the woman who has held everyone together. Anita is not just a mother or a wife. She is the spiritual backbone of the Dupree family, the one who protects its dignity, rhythm, and stability for hearts that are full of pride but also full of wounds. That is why her treatment for a malignant illness over the past months has not only exhausted her physically, but has also quietly left the entire family suspended between hope and despair. The drug nicknamed the Red Devil is not terrifying only because of its medical power. It is terrifying because of the price Anita has to pay to keep fighting. Every time it saves her a little more, it also takes away a little of her strength, a little of her confidence, a little of the dignity a woman like Anita has spent her whole life building. The greatest tragedy in this journey is not only physical pain, it is the destruction of the spirit. For strong women, illness is often less frightening than the feeling of being seen as someone growing weaker by the day. Anita nearly gave up not because she did not love her family, but because there are days when continuing to live in pain feels more terrifying than letting go. Yet she kept going, and that very perseverance throws the people who love her into even greater uncertainty. Are they encouraging her to fight because of love? Or because they themselves are not ready to face the possibility of losing her? When the latest news about Anita's health spreads through the Dupree family, the confusion does not lie only in the medical report. It lies in the way each person interprets it through the lens of their own fear. If Donnie needs comfort, that suggests that at least part of the truth is far from easy. But it is also possible that the family is hearing the news through their emotions before they hear it through reason. A result that is not good enough can feel like disaster. A fragile ray of hope can be buried beneath the weary face of the patient. The deeper issue is whether Anita even wants the entire family to know the full truth of her condition. A woman like her may well choose to keep the worst of the pain to herself, not because she lacks trust, but because she loves the people around her too much. There are mothers who would rather carry the fear of death alone than watch their children panic. There are wives who would rather swallow their pain than let their husbands feel helpless. That is why the important question is not only whether her treatment is improving or worsening. The sadder question is whether what the family knows is the whole truth or only the part Anita allows them to know so they can remain standing. Vernon, in those circumstances, becomes even more heartbreaking. His calm may indeed be real strength, but it may also be the final layer of armor worn by a man who understands that if he collapses, the entire family will unravel. His steadiness does not make the story less painful. It only makes the pain quieter, deeper, and more heartbreaking. While the Dupree family is shaken by fear over Anita's health, another collision is quietly tightening the atmosphere, the confrontation between Leslie and Haley. This is not the loud kind of conflict. It is the most dangerous kind at Fairmont Crest, where a warning can be as sweet as honey while concealing a command, and where a handshake can be the beginning of control. Leslie has never been the kind of woman who helps anyone without conditions. Every time she approaches Haley, there is calculation behind it. Leslie's attempt to draw Haley into a villainous alliance may sound like an offer of partnership, but at its core it feels more like an effort to expand her own power by turning someone else into a tool. Haley has refused many times, and that suggests she does not yet want to surrender her independence. But people usually refuse only while they still believe they have a choice. Once they are pushed far enough, they begin to call surrender a survival strategy. That is why Leslie's warning to Haley carries to meanings. On the surface, it may resemble an act of goodwill, as though an experienced woman is simply showing a younger one where the danger lies. But at a deeper level, it is more likely a soft noose. Leslie wants Haley to understand that if she wants to survive at Fairmont Crest, she must learn to play by the rules of women like Leslie. That is not help. It is training for dependence. And what is troubling is that Haley seems to have received that warning in a way that feels immediately beneficial. When she rushes to celebrate a victory afterward, that relief could easily deceive her. People who live under constant pressure often confuse escaping danger with truly winning. The moment they manage to lift their heads above water, they think the storm is over, when in fact they have only entered a deeper whirlpool. Haley may therefore be celebrating too soon. The more a woman believes she has finally turned the situation in her favor, the more exposed she becomes. And at Fairmont Crest, vulnerability is a luxury no one can afford. If Leslie is truly planning to control Haley, then the first gift she gives her will always be a false sense of safety. The moment a person begins to believe that someone dangerous is now on their side, that is the very moment they remove their final layer of defense with their own hands. Haley may think she has just escaped one problem, but it is entirely possible that she has only moved from a smaller trap into a larger one, where the cost will no longer be a secret revealed, but control over her own life. Placed side by side, these three storylines create a picture that is deeply characteristic of Beyond the Gates at this moment. On one side, Cott's fragile birthday joy standing on the edge of being destroyed by schemes and the ghosts of relationships. On another, The gut-wrenching fear of the Dupree family as Anita enters a decisive stage in her battle for survival. And elsewhere, the cold negotiation of power between Leslie and Haley, where victory and entrapment look almost exactly the same. What makes this narrative so compelling is not the number of events, but the way each one strikes at a fear that is deeply human, deeply feminine. The fear that a joyful day will become a day of humiliation. The fear of watching someone you love weaken before your eyes while being powerless to help. The fear of trusting an open door only to realize it leads deeper into darkness. And perhaps that is exactly why the current developments in the show resonate so strongly with older viewers. After all the years of living, loving, enduring, and losing, people understand better than anyone that tragedy rarely arrives with a loud explosion. More often, it comes quietly through a family party, a health update, or a warning that appears harmless. Kat may receive the most beautiful birthday gift of her life, or the most painful one. Anita may be moving closer to hope, or the Red Devil may be draining the last of her strength. Haley may have just escaped danger, or she may have stepped deeper into it herself. But no matter how it ends, one thing is certain. Fairmont Crest will not be able to maintain its outward calm much longer. Because once joy, illness, and conspiracy collide within the same narrative rhythm, every mask will eventually fall away, and what remains in the end will be the true nature of each person, along with the price they must pay to hold on to love, dignity, and their place within the family. Everything I create is based only on personal speculation and shared opinion. If you find this video helpful and enjoyable, please support me with a like and leave a comment. I always appreciate every contribution and every bit of support from you. Thank you so much. And if you have not subscribed to us yet, please scroll down and hit the subscribe button.